Good morning, Justin. How are you doing today?
Wonderful. Good morning, Zach.
It's good to see you as always. We've got another fun plugged in episode in front of us today. I got a lot. That I got to queue you up for. It's a Friday special. We're probably going to go a little bit longer because there's just so much to talk about. There are the most affordable EVs to buy in 2022 that we're going to touch on. There's some news with the 2022 Ford F-150 Lightning. Toyota recently announced pricing on the BZ-RX. The B's. Why can't they just come up with easy names for the Toyota EVs? Because it's the BZ4X. Can you explain that to me?
Well, they should just name it like QWERTY. Just QWERTY. Type on the keypad something. That'd be better, right?
I think that might be better. All right, let's kick things off, Justin. You have an awesome article back on the Join YAA website, the 5 most affordable EVs you can buy in 2022. Let's kick it off there.
Yeah, so affordable EVs are hard to come by in 2022, and we thought that would change, but it looks like that might go into 2023. Sorry, that's bad news, but luckily there are still plenty of generous incentives. There's the federal $7,500 tax credit. There's multiple states with very generous incentives: New Jersey, New York, California, and several others. So you can still find a sub $40,000 EV if you know where to look. And that's something that I think we're going to focus a lot on here at YAA Electric is where's the affordable EVs? So I want to share with everyone a few options that you can consider depending on what your price range is. And as we go through these options, I want to make sure that everyone remembers, yes, they cost more than the average combustion or ICE vehicle. However, in theory, fuel is going to be a lot cheaper. Electricity is a lot cheaper than gas. So let's look into that. And not to mention, some of these come with 2 or 3 years of free charging. Now, one of my favorites is the Volkswagen ID.4. Now, what's so special about the ID.4? If I'm honest, it's the affordability. It doesn't have the best tech. It doesn't have the best charging. It has stylish looks for 40-something thousand. But what you can walk out the door with is an EV that honestly can go 250 miles real world range. This has been proven time and time again for about 44,000 before any incentives. Now that's still like, let's be real. That's kind of expensive. However, the ID.4, I like it also because it comes with 3 years of free charging at Electrify America. Can't guarantee that the charger will always work.
Have you had that experience yet?
So far, because I drove to the airport and back 2 times, I have charged at Electrify America 8 times now. Now,
Wow.
a few of those times were basically optional. I just wanted some free electrons, so I pulled in and topped up. But I have had one situation where the charger did work, but it was abnormally low power. So like 50 kilowatts, where I should have been getting 200 kilowatts. I unplugged, plugged it back in, and it worked. I mean, you don't have to do that at a gas station, but hey.
But 3 years free Electrify America is like pretty damn compelling. I mean,
it depends how much you travel.
Yeah, that's like that could be. Am I understating it? $10,000? I mean, I feel like it's probably somewhere around there.
Yeah, if you travel a lot. Now, I did the math whenever I was making this decision for my own recent purchase. I got the Ioniq 5, which comes with 2 years of free charging, and it was more like $3,000 or $4,000 in savings for my family. But still, that's a lot of money. So let's talk real quick about the Kia EV6 and the Ioniq 5. They are a little bit more expensive. We're talking starting prices around 44,000, but they are a whole nother level when it comes to the technology. We're looking at really fast charging, like sometimes even faster than a Tesla, 10 to 80% in like 20 minutes or less. And that's due to 800-volt architecture, which is brought by the eGMP platform that Hyundai and Kia have partnered together to build. So I consider the Kia EV6 and the Ioniq 5 from Hyundai to be quote-unquote future-proof EVs. Maybe not 10 or 20 years in the future, but 5 years from now, that 800-volt architecture and that fast charging is going to, in my opinion, make that residual value so much higher for these two EVs. So even though it costs a few thousand more, I think it would be a wise choice for people out there considering a non-Tesla.
We've got Christopher here in the chat saying he loves his EV6 best best car I've ever owned, and it only cost me $5 more on my electricity bill compared to $80 a week filling up with gas on his previous car. I'll take the $5. There's a perfect example of the EV6 being a perfect replacement to an internal combustion engine vehicle.
Yeah, for sure. And the Ioniq 5 is like, in my opinion, it's kind of the opposite styling of the EV6. So it's kind of cool that Hyundai Kia and their gigantic partnership have decided to appeal to people who like a retro design and people who like a futuristic spaceship design. And I mean, you can have the same platform, two very different styles.
Yeah.
So what if you want an affordable Tesla? Bad news for you. It's going to be hard to find, and even harder as time goes on. Tesla prices have gone up by about 25% in the past 10 months. That's a lot of money. If you really want to go the Tesla route and you're looking under 50 grand, I can't believe we're saying this is affordable. 50 grand is not
That's
affordable.
nuts. That's nuts.
It's nuts. You're going to be having to resort to the Model 3 standard range, which is still a great vehicle. I've got some experience driving that one around town. It's still zippy. It goes 0 to 60 in about 5.8 seconds. And you're still going to be paying about $47,000. And once you add on the mandatory destination fee, you're looking at basically $49,000. Out the door, you're going to be looking over $50,000. Salud.
I just asked my dad for a tissue, man. Allergies are real.
You'll
and
make
he
it through.
delivered.
Wow. Everybody give it up for Papa Shefska.
Thank you for that, Justin.
Hospitality.
So is the Tesla seriously one of the affordable EVs, or is it just on the list because, well, a Tesla has to be on an EV?
Well, let me give you some more facts, and maybe we can have the viewers chime in, leave us a comment, and tell us if we should toss this off the list. Because Tesla no longer qualifies for the $7,500 federal tax credit. That's a big deal. Honestly, I might have to remove this from the list. We thought, right, Zach? We thought by now that there would be an update to the EV tax credit. There were all indications that it would happen. It hasn't happened. It's on the back burner. So it looks like at least for the rest of 2022, that's not coming back. I'll have to start thinking, what could I replace it with on our list? Not quite sure.
I'm laughing here just because this list and the fact that we have to take Tesla off is literally bringing a tear to my eye. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm borderline crying because But you're right. The tax credits and the tax incentives are such a major player in making EVs affordable, especially when you and I know this because we look at it every day. The cost of these things likely isn't going to go down. I mean, it might in the future, but like look at what's going on in Ukraine and raw metals. Like it's tricky without subsidies to be able to actually afford one of these. But ID.4, EV6, Ioniq 5, like those are some solid options. I'm curious to see which one is the fifth that you rounded up the list with.
Yeah, so I want to go into some often overlooked options, and this is where we might get into real affordability by 2022 standards. Buy an EV for $34,000 pre-incentives. What do you think it is, Zach? Pre-incentives, $34,000.
It's the Chevy Trax EV that doesn't actually exist.
Oh, I see so many Chevy Trax around my town, and I don't know why anyone buys them, to be honest.
Could you imagine a Chevy Trax that had the weight of all the batteries, like a single ton Chevy Trax? Like that's what I want to buy. A 2-ton Chevy Trax, actually.
Or like a bulletproof Chevy Trax with spinning rims.
Now you're talking my language. It's probably isn't it Kona? I imagine
it's the Kona. It's the Kona, and the Kona is really overlooked, but I'll tell you why it's overlooked. So it does get 258 miles of range on a charge, and that's on par with 2022's latest EVs. I mean, sure, Tesla gets 300, the rear-wheel drive Ioniq 5 gets 300, so does the EV6, but for $34,000, 258 miles of range is really good, and once again, that's shown to be true in the real-world driving. Now, here's why it's so affordable and why it's not that popular. It's really hard to travel with the Kona Electric. It charges slow. So you're going to be sitting at a charger for like 50 minutes every time you charge up. Whereas with my brand new Ioniq 5 and with the EV6 and with Teslas, you're charging for like 20 minutes on a road trip and then continuing your journey. So there's a big difference there. But Hyundai does always come with that unbeatable 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. And I think another reason the Kona Electric is not all that hot right now is it doesn't really look cool. I mean, what do you think,
Yeah.
Zach?
No, I'm in here. I'll pull it up on the screen. And again, Justin has an awesome article. So if you heard this and you actually want to go read through his takes on each of them, it
I mean, it's a
looks
good buy.
okay. Yeah, I
It's
mean, in this photo, it looks pretty good.
yeah, that was the best they could pay their marketing team for photos. And
Model 3s, it looks good. I think
yeah,
obviously the Ioniq 5 that you got is one of the cooler ones out there, the spaceship as you describe it. And the EV6, you're so right. It has kind of the interior, obviously, is going to be kind of similar, like very futuristic, but exterior, it's totally different. There's a lot of interesting options when it comes to EVs, and I think I was joking about the Chevy Trax, but I actually think that the Kona is like the equivalent of the Chevy Trax. Like you will see more and more. You will see the Nissan Versa of EVs down the line. You will see the
yeah,
Honda
for
Fit
sure.
of EVs down the line.
I mean, GM is already trending in that direction with the upcoming Chevy Equinox EV. I know that's not nearly compact, but still, they're going towards the more affordable route. That's supposed to start around 35,000 too. Now, one thing I want to mention before we wrap this segment up is that the Kia e-Niro, so the electric Niro, it's the equivalent of the Hyundai Kona. But it's another great option around the same price point for those who prefer a Kia over a Hyundai. You can get one for around 34,000, roughly the same range, same charging speed. Now, what makes the Kia e-Niro and Kona EV different from the Ioniq 5 and EV6, other than the looks and the charging speed, is that they were basically compliance vehicles. Now, what's that mean? It's
Hmm.
that they were combustion cars that were basically retrofitted by the manufacturer to become an EV to make sure that they sell enough EVs to meet their quotas around the world in Europe and California and stuff like
Interesting.
that. Yeah, so they are not they don't have the living room like space that the EV6 and Ioniq 5 have, where since you have an electric motor up in the front or in the back, you don't have any drive shaft going through the middle of the vehicle. My car feels amazingly spacious. It's kind of weird. It doesn't look that big, but when you step inside, it's very spacious. The e-Niro and Kona EV, it's not like that just because they're adapted to be EVs. But for sure, let's wrap this up with the Nissan Leaf, which is actually the originator. That was the first widespread mass sales EV in North America. It started way back in 2010.
What
That's
was the
crazy.
original MSRP? Do you know?
Oh, original back in 2010. I don't know, but I bet it was like
Curious.
27,000. I'm not sure. Now, I don't know. The Leaf makes me sad. I'll tell you why it makes me sad. Because it was the leader of EV sales for a solid 5 years, and Nissan never invested in major updates that could have propelled it into success into the 2020s. They just kind of have let it linger. They're not saying they're going to kill it off. In fact, the 2023 Leaf is getting some exterior aesthetic updates. They're changing the way it looks a little bit, but
Mhm.
it still charges extremely slow. It still only gets between 150 and 200 miles on a charge. It's horrible to travel with, but it's affordable and it still qualifies for the tax credit. So if you absolutely must have an EV and you can only manage around 25 to $30,000 for that price, then consider the Leaf. But hopefully you don't travel a lot.
We got a couple comments here in the chat that I want to pull up, Justin, and then I do actually want to talk about Toyota. I've got the BZ4X behind me, and I know pricing for that was just announced the other day. I want to get your take on that. Andrew says, did the $12,500 tax incentive pass? And unfortunately, the answer to that's no. The Build Back Better bill was killed. It is no longer. Yeah, there's no chance of that right now.
There's been lingering discussions of it resurfacing in a different form, probably with completely changed language, but it might come back, just not in a hurry. The world has a lot of other things to worry about right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Freddie's got a question here. He says, can you talk about other EVs using the Tesla charging network? Is that happening now?
This is fascinating. So in Europe, that is in the process of happening. In the UK, I believe already any EV owner can use the Tesla supercharger network. In the Netherlands, they can. And there was a lot of discussion that it was about to happen here in the US and maybe in Canada, but it looks like not so fast and maybe not at all. Now, why would Tesla want to do this to begin with? Just think about it. Let's brainstorm for a second, Zach. Why would Tesla want to open up their network to others? They don't have to.
Do they mark up the electricity? Could they charge some sort of subscription fee to have access to it? Something like that?
They would, and that is an additional revenue stream, but it's a surprising answer. It's actually because in order to receive federal funds to build more chargers from like stimulus packages, they can't be exclusive.
Wow. So that would be what pushes it. So money talks, then, to be clear. Money
Money
talks. Where the money
talks.
comes from, whether it's a consumer's pocket or the government's pocket, that's going to influence them. That's really neat.
Yeah, and as of right now, they're holding off because I've seen superchargers myself that are already full with like literally a 20-minute wait to pull into a charger. It's not common, especially in my region. But in California, New York, sometimes along I-95 along the East Coast, superchargers can have a wait time. Now, if you open that up to other automakers, other makes of EVs, how much worse is that going to get? The only way to accommodate for that would be to rapidly like double or triple the size of the network. How are they going to do that? Well, that's the federal money that they were thinking about, but I guess that money's not there right now, or they don't need it that bad, so they've
Yeah.
pushed it off till later.
Question for you, Justin, and this is a little bit naive, and then there's a couple more comments in the chat I want to pull up before we go on to the BZ4X. Do I know different EVs have different plugs, right? Like, for lack of a better term, there probably is an appropriate term, but the Tesla superchargers would only be able to be used by certain EVs that also share the same. Tell me, is plug the right word? Am I just making a fool of myself right now?
No, that's the right word. Now, there are adapters you can buy. You can buy an adapter right now on eBay for probably, I don't know, $150. It's not cheap, but these adapters can already be used at Tesla destination chargers. So I should have mentioned that earlier. Any EV can already use Tesla destination chargers. Now, what's that?
What's that?
It's
Yeah.
much slower. It's level 2 charging, which is going to be, less than half the speed of a supercharger, but it's still been a lifesaver for many EV owners who've been driving their Chevy Bolt or Nissan Leaf out in the middle of nowhere, running low on a charge because their car can't even go that far to begin with. No offense. No offense to the listeners out there. And well, they stumble upon a Tesla destination charger that can pull like maybe 8 kilowatts, roughly 7.5, I believe, and they can actually get enough charge to make it to their destination or to the next charger at Electrify America just by pulling into that destination charger and using their adapter. So anyone out there who's got an EV, don't forget that even if you drive a Bolt, you can use a Tesla destination charger.
I kind of agree with Neil here. Charging would need to be universal, interchangeable process for all EVs, same as buying gas. Yeah, like, as a layman who's learning from you with each episode we do here, I don't want to think about this stuff. Like, I remember the first time driver's ed, my dad, my mom teach me how to drive a car, going to pull up to the gas station. It's like, I don't even want to have to choose which, like, premium unleaded, like, just take away the learning curve. I just want to pull up, plug in, grab my smoothie, big smoothie guy, and then get back in my car.
Yes. So there are two things that really need to happen in the US if we're going to go all EVs in 10 or 20 years, which I think it'll be more like 20 to 30, but we'll see. There will need to be standards for charging plugs. There actually already is in Europe. In Europe, it's called the CCS charging standard. That's what I have on my Ioniq 5. Many other EVs have that. Tesla does not. So in Europe, Tesla has been forced recently to add CCS chargers to their European supercharger stations. That's the only place in the
Wow.
world where you'll find Tesla chargers with a different connector. Now, the other thing that needs to happen for EV adoption to not be like a silly waste of time is it's what's called plug and charge. Now, I almost have that on my Ioniq 5, but as of right now, Tesla has plug and charge. Now, plug and charge is when you just pull up to the station, grab the charge plug, and stick it into the car, and it starts charging by itself. You don't have to pull out your phone. You don't have to press any buttons in the car. It just does it automatically. And then the Wi-Fi connection between the charger and your car takes care of the payment. Then you see what the bill is. That needs to happen for every EV soon. Otherwise, like, I've heard stories of people who are playing on their phone trying to figure out the payment for 10 minutes waiting to charge. That's ridiculous. No one wants to do that.
God, we have so much to cover on this show. Space in the chat. Good to see you here, Mario. Leaf is not a bad lease if you can do MSRP sub $200 a month on an 18-month lease.
It's a great car
Wow.
for around town. Like if you live in the city and you don't travel much, or you have a different vehicle that you can use to travel long distances, it actually is a really good deal.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, the idea of leasing anything at $200 a month is pretty nuts in this market. Although my dad still very proud. He's at his $350 payment on his Mini. Let's switch gears and talk pricing about the Toyota BZ4X. It just came out the other day, Justin. Were you surprised by the numbers that you saw from Toyota?
Wasn't surprised by the pricing, but I'm surprised by the charge rate. So it starts around 42,000 before incentives. So this could be had for about 35,000 and maybe even lower in California, New York, and several other states with great incentives. So 42,000, that's about par for the course. The range is okay, but there's some nuance worth talking about briefly. So we've got about 255 miles of range. I believe it's 258. There's some exact number. That's with rear wheel drive, or is it front wheel drive? Let's find out. I'm on it, Zach. The BZ4X single drive, like powertrain. It's not all wheel drive. It goes about 260 miles on a charge. And what makes me kind of sad is that the all-wheel drive version, which when we're talking EVs, that's dual motor. You got a motor in the front, motor in the back. That only gets about 225 miles on a charge.
Wow.
So we don't know yet. Is that true in real-world testing? Like my Ioniq 5 has been proving to be pretty correct as far as the real world testing. However, Teslas are known for having real world range that is actually quite a bit lower than the rated range, and nobody quite knows why. You could speculate, but we won't get into that. And all right, so you got 225 to 260 miles on a charge, $42,000 car. The charge rate is what gets me kind of riled up, because everyone was expecting Toyota and their partner Subaru with the Solterra to have some kind of next generation charging infrastructure, because we've all waited so long for the BZ4X, fancy name and all. It's kind of like a mystery, right? You need a decoder for that name. Now, the all-wheel drive version only charges at 100 kilowatts. That's not good. You could get a 2015 EV that charges at 100 kilowatts. That means you're going to be sitting at a charger on a road trip for about 40 to 50 minutes, even if it has a decent charging curve. So charging curve is going to be, well, what if it holds 100 kilowatts of power throughout 60% of the charging curve? That's actually not that bad. Well, even if it has a decent charging curve, you're going to be sitting at the charger for about 40, 45 minutes to fill up. Whereas I sit at the charger for 20 minutes, grab a snack, go to the restroom, and I'm ready to go. However, the single drive version of the BZ4X is a little bit better at 150 kilowatts. Now, I believe this is the first time I've seen such a large difference in charging speeds based on powertrain spec, because what we're looking at here is two completely different battery chemistries. And this blew my mind. I did not know this. Toyota had to deal with such a supply constraint with their batteries. They had to source batteries for the all-wheel drive variant from a completely different supplier, CATL, out of China. So it's that different battery supplier that the chemistry of those different batteries has required a slower charging speed, and that's not good for those looking for the BZ4X. I expect build quality to be great. I mean, it's a Toyota. They've got who knows how many decades of experience doing that. It'll be a great vehicle on the inside. If you're into Toyota styling, there won't be any surprises, but it's that charge rate. If you travel a lot, think a lot, like put some effort into this, do the math, do the calculations. How long would I actually be charging if I purchased this EV? Especially when for $3,000 more you can find a base trim Ioniq 5 or EV6 that charges in half the time. You can the Hyundai 112 in Long Island, where I purchased mine, they sell the base trim for $44,000. It charges twice as fast as the BZ4X.
Where does this slot in? Like, am I naive in thinking that it doesn't really it doesn't move anywhere? Like, honestly, if I'm a Toyota lover, obviously different body styles, but and different powertrains, but I'd look at like the RAV4 Prime and I'd be like, okay, that probably makes more sense to me.
Yes.
And it's going to cost me about the same. I mean, obviously, if you get the tax incentives on the BZ4X, it won't cost the same. But like, I'm just trying to see here where does it fit? Doesn't really
One
seem to fit.
100%. So if you're a Toyota lover and you just have to have an EV from Toyota, then maybe you want the BZ4X. But if you travel at all, I'm telling you, as an EV nerd, as an EV lover, go buy the RAV4 Prime. Don't buy the BZ4X if you travel a lot.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Lexus ends up producing, because obviously there will be a Lexus full EV out there in the near future. You've got Tesla doing the luxury route. You've obviously got Porsche doing in the luxury space. It'll be interesting to see with this infrastructure what compelling Lexus product is there ultimately going to be. I don't know. My hopes are now like diminished based on what you're teaching me about the BZ4X.
Well, we also just learned that Honda is working with GM to catch up in the EV space. So we've got
I give you
Toyota.
pause.
Yeah, let's think about that. That's pretty wild. Honda partnering with GM. And GM's actually going to build the Honda Prologue EV for Honda. That's wild.
That's
Eh,
nuts.
So I fear that Toyota and Honda are paying the price of delaying their switch to EVs, and they're struggling to catch up. Who's going to spend 42,000 on an EV that charges half as fast? I don't know, but we'll see what happens. Maybe we'll be surprised, Zach. Maybe it'll sell really well.
Here you go. This is why you're not going to get that RAV4 Prime. Green is good. Toyota dealer in my area told me up to 2 years to get a RAV4 Prime. Holy
Wow.
cow.
Well, I wonder how long it would have been to find an Ionic 5 where I live in West Virginia. Probably like 5 years. I
That's still insane though. That's nuts. And I know from talking to Toyota dealers, it's like impossible. Like you literally can't get your hands on them. However, I think it's when you think about where vehicles slot in, the RAV4 Prime slots in I hate to say it, prime space. I mean, it just checks a lot of boxes for a lot of different people versus the BZ4X. Again, I really don't understand, because you would probably go towards more of a Hyundai or a Kia product before you'd go towards a Toyota product. And you know the build quality with Hyundai Kia and the 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. Like, I'm doing the math in my head, it doesn't pencil. You know, it makes more sense to likely go with a competitor. But it'll be interesting to see what they bring out in the future. Obviously, there'll be more innovation there.
I believe that the surprising number one competitor to the BZ4X will actually be the upcoming Chevy Equinox EV. If they're going to be offering faster charging, better range for 35,000 before incentives, in 2023 Chevy might be having some kind of electric comeback. We'll see.
Possibly. All right, let's talk about another EV that, well, RAV4 is hybrid, but still an EV that is hard to get your hands on. I'll pull it up on the screen here, Justin. I know there's a lot of hype around the Ford F-150 Lightning, already sold out. The automaker is no longer taking orders from retail customers for the cheapest 2022 F-150 Lightning trim levels. This news just came out this morning.
Yeah, so the F-150 Lightning makes sense for those who traditionally spend a lot of money on fuel driving their truck around, whether it's to the work site or just for recreation. As we know, Zach, you might spend $120 filling up a truck today, maybe even more in California. Well, the Lightning offers a lot of potential value to customers through fuel savings. However, if you can't find one, what good is it, right?
16-month wait for my Lightning from Phil in the chat. Holy cow.
Yeah. Ford has repeatedly upped their production estimates for how many they will build. Of course, if they can find the parts and the chips and the batteries and the wire restraints and all the different things that they're lacking right now. But it looks like someone who tries to place an order in 2022 is going to get their Lightning in 2024.
Yeah, which is like mind-boggling for a variety of reasons. Like, which model year are you getting at that point? Like, are you locked in on price? Probably not. Are we going to see the Rivian story 2.0, where I thought I was locked in at this price, but I'm actually bumped up to that price? There's a lot of dominoes that are eventually going to fall in that space. It's pretty scary, to be honest, and it ties back in with just the car shortage in general, which we talk about all the time
Yeah, I really wish EVs would get more affordable because let's be real, it's not going to be mass adoption of EVs. And by the way, they are fun to drive. So I love not having tailpipe emissions and polluting the air. That's great. I know the power comes from somewhere, but for those of you out there who don't care, they're fun to drive. Don't judge an EV until you get behind the wheel.
All right, I want to talk about one other thing, Justin, and then let's actually call it a show for today. We've got the Ray and Zach with Miss Kimberly Klein coming up here in half an hour, so I actually should get a little bit prepared for that. I want to talk about VinFast. I know it wasn't on our list for today, but they're taking a totally different model, which is interesting. Maybe that will make EVs more accessible. You cannot buy. Can you buy a VinFast? I don't think you can buy a VinFast. You lease everything. You rent the battery. Like, help me understand that model.
You can buy a VinFast just like you can buy an electric lawnmower from Home Depot or Lowe's without the battery. I mean, those department stores, those home improvement stores, they sell you an electric lawnmower without a battery. You just got to go buy that battery separately. Well, VinFast, you can buy the car, but you've got to rent the battery. They don't let you buy the battery. This is the only automaker that will be operating in North America that has this batteries not included model. Pretty strange if you ask me, but let me sprinkle in some good news. They are going to be hiring thousands of people for their brand new factory that they're building in North Carolina to build these VinFast vehicles. So that's kind of interesting, right?
Yeah, I mean, job creation is obviously a good thing, and a new brand coming to the United States, more competition, that's also a good thing. I wonder if that model will be what allows more people to unlock the experience of EV. I don't know if it will. I guess we'll figure that out over the next couple of years. But obviously, the traditional automakers, like this news coming from Ford, they're struggling to get F-150 Lightnings in people's hands. The news coming from Toyota, they're struggling to get a compelling EV on the road. Plus, they can't even get their most compelling hybrids on the road. Maybe there is an opportunity for companies like VinFast to swoop in here and really take some market share. And heck, look at Polestar, man. Like Polestar is starting to make a bit of a name for themselves because they're all in on EV. And you know what? They're building really good products, and obviously their volume is way, way lower than any of these other names that we've talked about thus far. But it's creating opportunities for them to come in and help with this adoption towards electric.
Yeah, and I want to point out real quick that with the VinFast battery rentals, it's $110 a month on top of whatever you're paying for the car, or $1,300 a year. I don't know why there's a difference there, but that's kind of
I mean,
ridiculous, don't you
you
think?
save a little money, right? Because 12
Like,
times
like
110.
less than $100. I don't know. Yeah, so that's a lot of money to rent a battery. So you'd have to do the math and see if that makes any sense for you. And sure, you could argue that maybe battery technologies through your rental will be so much better 5 years from now that you're getting a much better range and all that. But personally, I'm not a fan.
Yeah, no, I hear you, Justin. All right, let's call it a show for today. Please, please, please go back to the community forum and continue to post in the electric vehicles channel. I know, Justin, you were telling me before we hopped on. I mean, there's just one of our posts, there's like 40, 50 comments on it. I mean, it's really becoming active, and that's what we love to see.
Yeah, make sure and let us know what EVs you're considering, even if you're not ready to buy. Which ones do you like? Hop over to the community, let us know, because that's going to guide us in what we talk about in the future. Hopefully, we get you guys some useful information and make EVs approachable.
Justin, happy Friday to you. Congrats on your first week on YouTube. And if you're new here, please go subscribe. It'll be on Monday on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. The podcast will launch as well, so you can check us out there. Justin, congrats again. Great first week. And I'll see you again on Monday.
Thank you. Have a great weekend, everyone.
See ya.